Our next guest is a lawyer by profession, a model, an activist, and a diversity advocate. Thando Hopa graduated with an LLB law degree from Witwatersrand in 2011. In 2012, she worked as a prosecutor for the National Prosecuting Authority for 4 years, 2 of which entailed specialisation in sexual offence cases in the regional court. She has worked with one of the country's best designers as the face of Johan Coetzee's Spring-Summer collection for Fashion Week. She's been selected to be a panellist at the World Economic Forum Africa Summit that's in Cape Town next week. Her busy life and colourful career straddled both the world of entertainment and development, and we have got this lady in studio with us. Wow, what a pleasure to have you here.
That was quite a wonderful introduction, I have to say. Thank you.
And an introduction that you deserve, because there are no lies in there. I mean, I wonder if South Africa knows this about you. I mean, do you think many people know this about you, that you've actually worked for the National Prosecuting Authority?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, you know, a lot of the times when people see model, it makes people think that that's all you do and there's nothing else to your identity. So when you're like, I have a legal background, they're like, oh.
Suddenly the attitude changes, right?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know, I found that a lot of the times when you have the term model, people assume that whatever it is that you are going to say, they basically almost dismiss it, and I think it's a little bit unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is, because you never, just because you're absolutely beautiful, it doesn't mean that what's going on inside here is not as beautiful and encouraging, which is, it's so good to know. It's so good to know. Let's just go back a little bit and see, what was your life like? Where did you grow up? What were you aspiring to be? And particularly with albinism, what was that like as well?
So I grew up in Lenasia South. It was a multicultural community. I grew up with 2 amazing parents, and I think when I grew up, I understood that I was different probably at the age of 5 or so, but I think my difference never really had a social or political significance to me. I was just Thando, you know, and as time went on, I think I started noticing that difference meant something to people. But when I decided when I went into law, I didn't do so initially because I loved it, I have to tell you. My father wanted me to be an accountant. I wanted to be an actress, so you
met halfway.
Yes, this was a philosophical and ideological
compromise. Is an actress in some way or other. You have to get up there and play your part.
But then after that, I went into street law while I was doing my LLB. And because I was doing community-centered law, I think it really entrenched the way I viewed what the law could do. So my decision to become a prosecutor was different. That was out of passion and purpose. And then, of course, you know, in the interim, I got scouted by Johan Coetzee.
Sure.
And he asked me to do a shoot, and I was underwhelmed by the prospect of becoming a model because I was a lawyer.
Yeah,
and I just started working for the National Prosecuting Authority, so I was like, I don't really want to, you know, do anything apart from this. And also, I think I really had a myopic view of what modeling could do until I spoke to my sister, and she said, hey, you know what? This could be a really wonderful platform to change perceptions. And sure, then a very interesting trajectory took place as soon as I stepped into that platform.
Yeah, and it really did. I mean, I didn't know you. I know you now, and I see you at various functions, and we have some chats, which I always look forward to. But I always watched you from afar and saw you modeling these clothes and standing there with such poise and such grace and you could see there is something different about you, because that's what's so phenomenal, because it isn't just this woman standing in clothes. There's so much more to you, and that's what makes it interesting, and that's what I think the world, and I'm not just saying South Africa, because you've become quite the global symbol, which when you say that trajectory really smashed onto its head, I mean, you blazed onto covers of magazines that nobody's ever been on. I mean, talk to us about that.
Sure. You know, it's quite interesting, because when I was younger, I had never seen the image of albinism being celebrated in our popular culture, particularly in South Africa. And seeing a woman on Marie Claire was my first cover.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw a woman with albinism on a cover was me.
Sure.
You know, and that was quite an overwhelming experience. And then after that, it was Vogue.
I mean, that is just
and it was like
incredible.
And it turned out that I was the first woman with albinism to be on a Vogue cover across the world. And I think as much as that is quite an unbelievable and incredible thing, but it also shows you that there was a really like slow progress in terms of representation. Because I mean, if you're looking at the year we're in now, for you to only have a woman with albinism on a Vogue cover, it does show you that the progress was slow, but I suppose the progress is happening. So
I mean, the names that you're associated with and that you've worked with, like Sean Diddy Combs, Naomi Campbell, Lupita Nyong'o, Whoopi Goldberg, being in this adaptation of Alice in Wonderland's character calendar, which was absolutely incredible, and I can go into all of that, but I want to focus on that side that perhaps people don't know and they haven't seen about you. In 2018, you actually presented a paper at the Johannes Gutenberg University for the International Conference on Interdisciplinary Perspectives of the Albinotic Body in Mainz, Germany. I mean, this is now undergoing processes of publication. This is incredible work.
So it's very interesting that I became the academic model in a way. And I think, you know, my experience, and I really tried to filter this through, depending on whichever platform I was in, is that I understood something about law, and that law was the business of representation. And modeling is the business of representation. And I started understanding through my body that representation is multifaceted, and that I represented women, black people, Africans, South Africans, people with albinism. And that, as much as it is empowering, but at the same time, it really weighed on me, because I felt like I either experienced additional accountability in terms of my representation, because some people would say, oh, you know, this British newspaper said ABCD about South Africa and it wasn't true, and they said ABCD about albinism, which was true. So I started almost balancing identities, you know, and it became quite an overwhelming exercise, and I started understanding that we need to sort of foster contextual intelligence in terms of whichever platforms we're in. So I spoke about that, wrote about that, you know,
And the chances are it's going to be published too.
Chances are.
Finally, would you ever go back into law? Would you go back to practicing, perhaps even the NPA? Could you be our next boss? Who knows? Who knows? You never thought you'd be on the cover of Vogue.
That is true, and I've learned to never say never.
Exactly.
And I think, you know, law will never really leave me. But in terms of practicing, I think, you know, the jury is actually still out. I'm not sure. I may go back. Who knows?
Who knows? And work maybe with Shamila Batohi, another incredible woman.
Yes.
So nice to have you in studio,
Thank
Thando.
you.
It really, really
Thank
is.
you.
I'm so glad that you are here with us, Thando Hopa, catching up with her busy schedule. So to have her here is a real treat for me, and I hope for you as well. All right, the time is almost 10 minutes before 9. We've got one more crossing we need to do, Sisekina, so stay tuned.